it's Jenny Carboni and I'm from cornerstonetherapies.com. Thank you for taking the time out to click on this video blog today. And we are looking at the anatomy of movement, and we are joined by Gilbert, my amazing helper, and he's here to visually show you what I am talking about. This video blog is to be looked at on its own, but also in conjunction with the written posts that I've been doing over the last month on the history of anatomy. We started this back in August and we were looking at rotating shoulders, which is a big subject here in Cornerstone Therapies. We see a lot of shoulder pain, a lot of neck pain, and it was a good subject to start talking about. And I got stuck really with the language of anatomy and movement, not because simply that writing is not my first vocation, although it is a dear love, but the language of anatomy hadn't really come full circle with the way that we look at movement within the treatment room now. And today I just wanted to go through two things that are really important to grasp, and hopefully they'll answer two questions that I'm often asked in the treatment room. The first one is, why do we bother with orthopedic assessment? And orthopedic assessment is simply a way of looking at muscles in action, which is a great thing to do. I use it every day with the majority of my clients. I'll look at how they're moving in isolation. So Gilbert here has a wonderful left shoulder. He's great. This all works, and if you imagine all the muscles on top, that would make a really lovely shoulder girdle. But what I tend to find is that in orthopedic assessment, I will ask Gilbert to bring his arm into flexion, which literally means he's bringing his arm up towards the ceiling, so his hand will be going up and creating that flexion within the shoulder. And then I'll ask Gilbert to go back into extension, so he's taking his arm away from him. And then I'll look at his shoulder in internal rotation, so he bends his elbow, the camera's bad angle, bends his elbow and brings the arm in. So we're bringing this head of the humerus here into internal rotation within the shoulder girdle, and then we bring it into external rotation. And Gilbert will do that on his own, then I will slightly resist his action, and then I'll do it for him. And that's active, passive and resisted testing. That shows us whether it's joint problems, muscles, tendons, ligaments. Great, I love it. And it gives a very clear idea about which bits hurt. So, for instance, Gilbert has come to me and he was reaching for his briefcase in the back of the car yesterday. And he found that he had a searing pain coming up his arm and it's resting within his shoulder. And then when he brings his briefcase back, he's bringing it forward, and his whole body is bringing it forward into the front of the car. Now Gilbert has told me that it hurts on internal rotation, and that's fantastic. But that doesn't really tell me what he's feeling in the car. And actually, when we get down to role-playing the action in the car, we find out that actually it's not just his shoulder, it's his neck, it's his hips, and he can feel it into his right knee. So we're not even looking at just the left shoulder, we're crossing down into the right knee. And so this action of taking orthopedic assessment and looking at muscles in their isolated form is a good starting, it's a good marker. But I think really in treatments we need to start looking at it in a whole action kind of way. And that's why I have this painting on my wall in the treatment room, because it's about full movement, it's about full action. And that is why I think integrated anatomy needs to be brought into the treatment as integrated therapy. It has to be movement based. I can't treat people if I don't know what's hurting them and what's causing them a problem and what's causing trigger point pain patterns. I just can't do that. And the reason I think fascia works with this, and the reason why I think fascia is becoming a lot more fashionable, is because it gives us the answers to the whole body problem. With Gilbert's briefcase in the car, the fascial web from the right knee really helps us explain that pathway for him. I think it needs to come with a little bit of a heads up really. We can look at muscles in isolation, and that is fantastic. And we can look at fascial webs throughout the body and how the fascia covers us in a fantastically new light, but I think we need to take them together. I don't think fascia on its own is the answer to all our problems. It can't be, because then we're taking fascia itself in isolation, and that is wrong as well. We're going back to that system, kind of like pigeonholing of the body. But once we take tendons, ligaments, soft tissue, and we take fascia, and even the viscera, because like this whole cavity that Gilbert has here is encasing viscera, and once we take the whole thing into play, actually we start playing with that. We see the movement, we see how it plays, where it's stuck, where it's loose, where it's tight, and where it's really kind of strong. Then we can get a full holistic program, treatment plan within bodywork, within massage for our clients. So I do hear the people who are very passionate about taking fascia on its own and that being a bad thing. Fascia is very fashionable, and I agree with their point of view. But I also don't want to isolate the muscles and the tendons and the ligaments either. I want to get a good harmony between the two, and never forget the viscera within the body. That has a huge part to play. And I think this is seen as in asthmatics a lot. We have this whole lung here that is encased by the ribs, and if that fascia is stuck against the ribs, actually we need to do a lot of work on the thorax there to really get that released and as easy as possible. So the condition isn't cured, it can never be healed, but it can be eased within the connective tissue and the fascial web that it resides in. So that's what we've been getting at over the blog posts over at cornerstonetherapies.com and blogspot.co.uk, and I think that is why I personally believe in spending quite a bit of time in the treatment room looking at orthopedic assessment, that isolated flexion, extension, internal and external rotation, and I love it, it's great. But also taking in the web of fascia, the web of connective tissue, and the viscera that plays such a massive part in our body's functionality. Without that we wouldn't work. So I hope it's been helpful. I hope my ramblings have kind of shed light on some of the blogs. And if there's any questions or comments, please leave them in the box below. And I look forward to speaking to you next time. Take care. Bye.